Hello, hello, hello. We are back. We are live. We are live. Welcome back to Talk Live. I'm just realigning and getting ready. Here we are. Yes, indeed. We are back. We are live here on Talk Live. Thanks very much for joining us. Yes, I started a bit strange there. A bit strange. Let me shut that down and we gonna get it on here. Yes, indeed. So, welcome back to Talk Live. Shut that down. And thank you very much for joining me here on Talk Live on a Friday night. Yes, we are here on a Friday night. Yes, so I thought I'd bring out the vintage Dun Talk gear here. I say my favorite Dun Talk gear. And again, link is down in the description. And again, spring summer line out now. So, Duntalk, DUNTLK.com. If you want to order something like this. I'm just moving the camera around for Instagram. There we go. Bam. And we are ready to go. So thank you very much for joining me on Talk live on IG and YouTube. Thank you very much. And we're going to get into this right away because I don't want to be here long. It's Friday night. And I don't think you want to be here either as long as I do. So let's just get it on here. So thank you very much for joining me on Talk Live. Yes, we're going to be discussing a clinician's look at the red pill. And what is hurting men as of today. Well, it's continuing on from the subject matter we discussed yesterday with Paul Brunson, the relationship expert and world-renowned matchmaker. We're going to move on from there and discuss it from a clinician's point of view. Dr. Alok Kanojia is a world-renowned psychologist and a Harvard-educated psychologist, and he is known around the world for his knowledge and the books the books that he's written on the subject. Well. You can look up Dr. Alok Kanojia and please subscribe to his, I think it's YouTube page. He does have a YouTube page as well. But anyways, let's get into it. We're gonna get into this right away onto the browser, and as you can see, we're back with Diary of a CEO. Shout out to Diary of a CEO. Millions of subscribers doing wonderful work. A lot of great content as well. Like, subscribe to Diary of a CEO. He's well, again, as you can see, he's done interviews with Busta Rhymes. He's done interviews with Thierry Henry. He's done interviews with Paul Brunson. He's done a lot of leading thinkers and leaders and, well, all around, influential people from all walks of life. So shout out to Diary of a CEO, and do like and subscribe to Diary of a CEO. But we're talking to Dr. Alok Kanojia about the subject of how there is the video reads, there's a crisis going on with men. We're producing millions of lonely, addicted males. Yes, we are. And it just goes to show that men are hurting, that men are indeed in need of love, of care, and of our sympathy. But again, this world does not provide it because they think it's a man's world and men are left to fend for themselves. And that's why the suicide rates are up, and that's why 80% of suicides are male-oriented. Mostly the men are, let me get myself in the center here. Yes, that's better. And most of these men are not clinically depressed in any way. So again, there's a huge degree of loneliness involved with men these days, and if you do not lack loneliness, you're one of the lucky ones, including myself. And we need to get into this. So again, let's discuss it with Dr. Alok Kanojia and Diary of CEO. It's going to be a short video, about 30-odd minutes, but we're going to critique it as we go along the way. And I thank you for joining me on Talk Live. So let's get into it right now.
Battery 80%.
Sort of high-profile individuals, etc. What is the full spectrum of individuals that you've spent time working
just
with?
A little bit more.
Entrepreneurs, things like that. So a lot of high-performance people. But then I've also worked with, like, losers, let's say. So this is also more intensely. This is everything from 25-year-old kid who's living in his mom's basement playing video games all day to people who are even homeless. So I worked with, like, basically like the whole spectrum. And yeah.
You used the word losers there. You did little air quotes for anyone that can't see you right now. I'm really interested when you talked about incels as well, whether the way society is and the way that we're heading in terms of clarity over what it is to be a man has had any impact on those people that you refer to as incels. Like I'm because we now have this digital world that we can live our lives in as a distraction from the real world. And there's now more confusion than ever over what it is to be a man and the role of a man in a, and then we look at the stats around suicidality. And I think in Europe, the biggest killer of men under the age of 45 is themselves currently. Mm-hmm. Is the shifting idea of what it is to be a man having an impact on people's sense of self and their purpose?
100%. So there's a crisis that's going on in men. And people think that this is new, but I don't think it's new. It's always been there. So if you look at even 50, 60 years ago, 80% of suicides are still going to be men. So historically, men have been killing themselves for 100 years and no one's been paying attention. We just noticed.
Again, he's right. He reiterates the point made by the host here of the CEO. And in that men are the leading cause of death among men of age 24 to 48 are themselves. Most of them commit suicide. So not surprising because there aren't the programs, and society does not feel sorry for men who fail and who cannot protect and provide. So if they off themselves, well, they will be buried, as my mother would say. They will be buried, but life goes on. When a woman is in crisis, men come running, clinicians come running. There are support programs. There are other initiatives that are there for women, so that they may have their lives saved and they do not off themselves. Other than that, the S word. Most men die by suicide. Let's continue.
Now, because the problem seems to be getting worse. So there's a couple of things that are really interesting to understand. So one is that if we look at what technology is doing to our brains, the first thing that it's doing is it is externalizing our attention. So if you look back, let's say 1,000 years ago, as human beings, we spent a lot more time with ourselves. So let's say that you and I go out hunting. And then let's say you shoot an arrow at a deer and you miss. And then I shoot an arrow at a deer and I hit. So in this moment, I'm superior to you. And then we pick up the deer and we're carrying it back. And then we have about 2 or 3 hours to take that emotional insult and we kind of process it. We just give our mind space to process it, which it does automatically. Now, if you look at what happens in people's days, they don't actually have any time to process what happens to them because we are so constantly distracted by external things. So I don't know if you're like this, but I was in this point where I was idiotically efficient. So I would wake up in the morning and I would listen to a podcast while I'm doing my exercise or whatever. And then even when I'm cooking, I'm listening to a lecture. And then when I'm walking to the train, I have earbuds in and I'm listening to a lecture there. On the train, I'm reading. I wanted my life to be completely efficient. I didn't want to waste a single moment.
I literally listen to the news in the shower.
Right? So we don't want to waste time. And so if you really think about it, where's the attention of your mind? Your mind is pointed outside of you. And so then what happens is once we do not pay attention to ourselves, we lose sight of our internal signals. Literally in the same way that if you raise a child in a dark cave, the photoreceptors in their eyes won't develop. They will atrophy. So anything that the mind does not get access to will start to atrophy. If I don't practice Spanish, I'm going to forget Spanish. The brain is a very efficient organ. So as we externalize our attention, we lose sight of our internal signals. We don't know who we are anymore. And now if I don't know who I am, how do I figure out who I'm supposed to be? I pay attention to the outside. Where are the answers? They're on the outside. So this person is talking about masculinity. This person is talking about what it means to be a man. This person is talking about what it means to be a man. And now since I don't have any internal source of information, I'm trying to figure out what it means to be a man from the outside world. And this is when men get truly fucked. Because what it means to be a man, we are getting all kinds of mixed signals. So on the one hand, it means being physically fit. On the other hand, it means being a provider. On one hand, it means having sex with as many women as you can find. On the other hand, it means having sex with just one woman and being a really solid man and being a good father. And then there's also people telling us that being a man means that you're shit, right? That you're toxic, that your testosterone level makes you violent, that you're evil, that you're privileged, that there's a patriarchy, all this kind of stuff. So we're getting all this information from the outside about what it means to be a man. And so there are all kinds of interesting ramifications of this. So men in today's society are not allowed to complain. So if you complain and you're a successful person or a privileged person, everyone is going to think you're arrogant. Everyone is going to think, oh my God, who's this fucking guy? This guy doesn't know what my life is like. How does he have any right to complain? And even your mind will tell you this. You'll look at these people and you'll be like, yeah, I don't have a right to complain. But now we need to stop for a second and think about what it does to your psychology when you as a human being are not allowed to articulate your suffering. I've worked with people who've grown up in abusive households where children will say to their parents, Mommy, Daddy, I'm hurting. And the parent smacks them across the face. How dare you? You're so lucky. You don't realize the sacrifices I make for you. It's traumatizing to the child when they say, I am suffering and no one listens. This is what we're doing to the generation of men. People are saying, I am suffering. For 100 years, men have been killing themselves. 80% of suicides are men. The most dangerous thing for a man under 45 is themselves. And these people have been literally killing themselves because no one has been listening to them. So in the same way that you grow up with as a child in a household that's abusive, where no one takes you seriously, no one listens to your suffering, and now we even have successful men who are not allowed to complain. So the psychological impact is the same. Anytime you have a human being who is suffering in some way and they cannot find connection with another human being, they cannot find compassion with another human being, that person is going to feel isolated. And if you look at the statistics on suicide, it's very interesting. So the number one thing that correlates with male suicide is not depression, and this is super scary. There's one study I saw recently that suggests that 50% of men who kill themselves have no history or evidence of mental illness. And this, I believe the statistic in my clinical practice because I know what depression looks like. I know what bipolar disorder looks like. And half the men that I've worked with, at least, are not actually mentally ill. See, mental illness means a pathology of the mind, which means that the mind is malfunctioning. Most of the suicidal men that I work with, their mind isn't malfunctioning. They genuinely have a life that is no longer worth living. They're looking at things and objectively realizing that there's no way out of the situation. So they turn to suicide. So I know it's kind of like a very controversial statement, but I think that's what my clinical practice has shown, and there's some research to even back that up.
So excellent points raised by Dr. Kanojia on this subject, in that men have been suffering for 100 years. I mean, in synopsis, men have been suffering for 100 years. Society has not been listening. Men, in that suffering, men are looking at outside influences to better themselves instead of thinking internally and observing oneself and taking stock in oneself in terms of turning things around for themselves. And at the end of the day, of the suicide rates, 80% being men who offer themselves, 50% of those men do not have any sort of psychological issue. They're normal individuals who have failed, quote unquote, failed at life, and they feel the only way out is to commit suicide. It's really, really a sad state of affairs where, listen, and I know I'm not going to get many views from this because, again, we're not featuring women here. But again, and we're not trashing on women. But the fact of the matter is the world has been trashing on men, and society has not recognized this point. It has not really gone to bat for men. They see them as a disposable commodity, and if you cannot protect and provide, if you do not have, if you're not rich enough, if you're not tall enough, if you're not strong enough, if you don't have the sexual prowess, if you can't raise a child, quite simply, you're on the outs, and that's why so many men have gone sexless, and so many men have decided that life is not worth living, and decided to off themselves. And it's a sad state of affairs. And as Dr. Kanojia has already realized, that people, the people who he deals with in this practice who have suicidal thoughts, most of them do not have a psychological issue. They don't. They literally don't. They just feel that there's no recourse for their failings. There's no way out of their bad milieu. And at the end of the day, they feel the only way out is to commit suicide and end their lives, which is a tragic tale. But this has been going on for at least a century, especially in the modern world, especially in the modern Western world. And, I mean, you see it from men who want to take their lives because they failed an exam, men who want to take their lives because they're sexless, men who want to take their lives because they're lonely, men who want to take their lives because they are dealing with mounting bills. In every milieu of life, when a man can't get himself out of a situation, he feels that he doesn't want to, he doesn't want to impede on anybody's day. So the only way out is to commit suicide and end one life, which is a shame. It's an absolute shame. And there should be more resources available to these men so that they can seek a way out. Because and it's nothing. There's nothing wrong with these men. It's just that society doesn't care for these men.
We sort of look at what's going on with men. We're sort of they have nowhere to turn to, and the number one thing that correlates with it is not mental illness, but is a sense of thwarted belongingness. So this is kind of like multivariate regression analysis. But basically, what happens is what causes people to kill themselves is they try to connect with others and they get rejected. So it's specifically a very specific research term called thwarted belongingness. So I try to belong to a group, and that group, or multiple groups usually, will thwart my attempts to join the tribe, to join the community. And this is what actually correlates a lot with suicidality. So what's going on with men right now is that we really don't allow them to suffer, because then you're not manly. And we're so externalized with our attention that we're not connecting with ourselves. And so we're looking to other people to tell us what it means to be a man. But that may or may not work for you, right? That may have been what worked for them. So then we kind of get into this problem where we're disconnected from ourselves. And then the world doesn't accept us. We're not allowed to suffer. And that's what creates the problem.
What is the remedy to this?
Good points raised there in terms of this. I'm just going to rewind that back, that little piece there, that what he was saying, and that.
But basically what happens is what causes people to kill themselves is they try to connect with others and they get rejected. So it's specifically a very specific research term called thwarted belongingness.
There it is. That's the word I was looking for. Thwarted belongingness. Men who try to be, as Dr. Kanojia said, they try to belong to a community. They try to be a part of a group. They try to be a part of a tribe. They try to be a part of a society, and a part of that society, and they are rejected. They are seen as an outcast. They're seen as an outlaw. And they are, left to fend for things alone. And that in and of itself is a recipe for disaster for a man. What men love being a part of a brotherhood. And it's important for men out there to reach out to each other. And see that they're doing okay, and making sure that they're doing all right. If you and seeing if there's any man in your circle who have suicidal ideations, it's very important. I mean, we just had the the month of mental illness in January, because again, after Christmas, the greatest time for suicides is January, just after Christmas, when people feel that when people are the loneliest, especially if they don't have family around them. And it's important that men rally around to find their friends, their family, or men who they feel are lonely at Christmas, and make sure that they're doing okay. I've had to do that myself. And it's important that we make all men feel as part of a tribe, as part of a group. And it's not really reflected in society, because again, women aren't going to do it, especially heterosexual men, because women don't feel obligated to reach out to these guys because they see them as creepy, and if there is no sexual nature. So it's up to men themselves to reach out and make sure each other are doing okay, because women aren't going to really do it unless they're a part of a family, or if on the odd chance. Those who they befriend a woman, and they look out for their well-being themselves. But it's so it's really up to men, because women won't really do that. They won't make that advance. because they may see that as making. They may take that as being creepy because a man may want to use them for sexual advances, and yeah, it's a sobering thought. It's a sobering thought. So it's up to men to look out for men so that they don't end themselves. So yes, and make them feel a part of a group. Make them belong. Make them feel that they are. And the fact of the matter is, if you're a part of a gym, I think you're a part of a. I think that's the best way. I think of being a part of a group. And belonging to a society once you're in that environment, I think it's a great. And also there are other sort of counseling groups as well that are available for men and that are popping up, pretty much all over the Western world and throughout the world, quite simply, and looking out for men who feel lonely, who need that helping hand in order to get through the day.
So I try to belong to a group, and that group, or multiple groups usually, will thwart my attempts to join the tribe, to join the community. And this is what actually correlates a lot with suicidality. So what's going on with men right now is that we really don't allow them to suffer, because then you're not manly. And we're so externalized with our attention that we're not connecting with ourselves. And so we're looking to other people to tell us what it means to be a man. But that may or may not work for you, right? That may have been what worked for them. So then we kind of get into this problem where we're disconnected from ourselves. And then the world doesn't accept us. We're not allowed to suffer. And that's what creates the problem.
What is the remedy to this?
So I think the first thing is we must reconnect with ourselves, right? So when you're kind of saying why does everyone think, oh, I need to achieve this. I need to make this money and things like that. Where did you learn that you should do all that? You learned all that from the outside. Instagram, right? So we get fed all of these ideas because if you look at all these influencers, what are they doing? They're never crying. They're smiling. Some of them will even pay very attractive women to take pictures with them.
Well, some of them are crying, but they're crying and uploading it for ulterior motives, right?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of them are genuinely suffering too. But then it's also there's all kinds of weird stuff going on. So one thing is people say that we don't allow men to be emotional. Nowadays, but people say, oh, men are allowed to cry. So this is something that I experienced even in my marriage, where we allow men to cry, but we don't allow men to be angry. But why are men no longer allowed to be angry? You just think about it for a second. So anger is just a completely normal emotion, right? But if I'm in a situation where I'm in an argument with my wife, and I feel emotion A, and I express emotion A, and she feels emotion B, and she expresses emotion B, these two things should be equal, right? We as both human beings get to express what we feel. Now, in the case of me expressing anger and her expressing sadness, she's crying and I'm yelling. Suddenly, I become a villain.
It's so interesting. I saw a viral tweet yesterday. It was someone Googling, my wife is yelling at me, what should I do? And then my husband is yelling at me, what should I do? When they Googled, my husband is yelling at me, what should I do? Domestic violence helpline comes up as a Google pop-up. When you Google, my wife is yelling at me, what should I do? Nothing comes up.
Yeah.
Because obviously, as you said, in the case of villainization, I know that most domestic violence comes from men, but it's interesting that we see the emotion, we interpret the emotions entirely differently because of that.
Absolutely, right? So we as a society will say oh, men need to be in touch with their emotions, but not anger. And then this is what really screws men, because as men, we are socialized and conditioned to only feel anger. This is the only emotion you are allowed to feel as a man growing up. And this is the one emotion that gets demonized when you're older. So I'll give you a simple example. So I used to get bullied a lot, right? So when I get bullied in school, what am I supposed to do, Stephen?
In school? Well, it depends if you can fight back.
Absolutely, right? It's fighting back. You didn't say talk to the teacher. You didn't say ask for help. You didn't say cry about it, because if I cry about it, what's going to happen, Stephen?
You're going to get bullied more.
Absolutely. So we turn every emotion. So men experience anger as something called an umbrella emotion. We literally suppress and are conditioned to suppress all other emotions except for anger. And then if you talk to men about their experience of life, anger is always the first thing that comes out of their mouth. Someone breaks up with you. How do you feel about it? Do you feel ashamed? No, that's not what we say. I feel pissed off. How could she do this to me? And then we vent that anger on the internet, and then this turns into misogyny, right? And then we get demonized for it. And it's not that there isn't, we should be harshly judged if we act on those kinds of emotions. I'm not saying that that's the case. But what we also need to consider is that the men who are saying these kinds of toxic things are saying that for a reason. This is because of their upbringing. This is because of the world that they lived in, right? So we're conditioned to only experience anger. Even sadness gets turned into anger. Shame gets turned into anger. Fear gets turned into anger, right? So if I'm afraid of something happening, what do I need? I need to man up, get angry, right? Like, let's go, son, let's go. This is the emotion that we tap into to overcome fear. So we don't feel any of those other emotions, and we're left only feeling anger.
At the very heart of aggression.
Very good point made by Dr. Kanojia in the fact that men, if they show fear, if they find that they're fearful, what they do, how do they react to fear? They become angry. But society doesn't want them to become angry. They want them to suppress that anger and put it into other outlets because it's frowned upon, that anger. It's sad that men cannot use that anger on a woman, or they use that anger on their kids, or they use that anger on society, and they want men to suppress it. However, that anger, if not put into the right circumstance, that's why I always advocate for men to, take that anger and put it into the gym. Take that anger and put it into some sort of physical pursuit, some sort of sporting pursuit, so that it is used constructively. Take that anger and talk to somebody about that anger. Talk to somebody about that anger, so that people will allow you to be heard, and in turn, you can find solutions to that anger. A problem shared is a problem halved. So therefore, I think therapy for men is very, very much important, and I think that's what Dr. Kanojia would advocate as well. But even if you don't have the ability to do that, I would say you need to put that in some sort of constructive sporting manner. But even then, there's a chance for that anger to pop off. So again, the suppression of anger is not exactly the greatest of things. I mean, you can only beat up a punching bag for so long, and we need proper outlets for men, as the host here was saying, that for male anger issues, where are there outlets for men? They aren't available. There are no outlets for men. You're asked to keep that to yourself. You are asked to internalize it, and once you internalize it, then it comes out in many negative ways, if not offing yourself. But if you're a woman and you're angry, or you're depressed or sad, there are many avenues for you to seek help, which is, I think the neglect of men is going to be a problem in the future years, because again, you're going to find society becoming a lot more violent, a lot more and using that anger in a negative way. And again, it's up to us to hear these men for who they are, and give men, because men are solutions based, and give men some sort of, let them know that they've been heard. Number two, and if you can, to provide the help, or if you can direct them to help, do so. Because again, all men need it. All men need it from one time or another, and we don't want to, and at the end of the day, we don't want men to suffer internally and alone, because that leads to suicide. That leads to, offing themselves.
I heard someone say to me once that at the very heart of aggression is some kind of insecurity. But for men, when they encounter that insecurity, they only know how to sort of manifest it as aggression.
So I wouldn't agree with the first thing, that at the heart of all anger is insecurity, but I would absolutely agree with the second thing, that the only way we know how to respond is with anger. Because
so here's the exact quote, just found it. The source of aggression is insecurity. As we are unconsciously aware that our position in life is never secure, people feel increasingly insecure and helpless, so they will be increasingly aggressive and confrontational at a personal and a social level.
So let's tunnel down into that for a second. Okay, so I think that is true on some level, but also I would disagree. So the first thing is that we have parts of our brain, even animals feel anger. But I think that like when two dogs are fighting over territory, I don't think that that's born of some kind of identity of insecurity, right? So if we really look at like the evolutionary purpose of anger, this is my opinion, is that anger is the emotion that we feel to protect our territory. It's a protective emotion. So if I slap you across the face, what's the first thing that you're going to feel? It's going to be anger. So if I insult you, you're going to feel angry. It's fascinating the way that it works. So anger causes our thoughts to be faster. Anger causes our peripheral vision to collapse to 30 degrees. So I only see what's in front of me. And it also makes me less sensitive to pain. So like my nociceptors will actually like start to be suppressed when I feel angry, right? So if I get into a fight, I'm going to feel it tomorrow, but like while I'm getting hit, I'm not going to feel it. So I don't think it's born of all insecurity. I think anger is simply an evolutionary response. It's something that we experience to protect ourselves. That's why we feel angry, right? So if I attack baby bear, mama bear is going to come out angry. So it's really a protective emotion. Now, I agree with the second part of the statement 100%, that when we feel insecure, especially as men, the only way we are taught to deal with our problems is through anger, right? So if I'm feeling insecure, if I'm feeling ashamed of myself, if someone's bullying me, what do? I put them in their place, right? I don't try to make peace. I don't complain to someone because no one's going to take me seriously, right? I have to stand up for myself.
So we've got the first point there about how we remedy this challenge, which is about self-expression, more self-expression. That's what I heard.
Not self-expression, introspection.
Introspection, getting to know ourselves.
Right? So it's very simple. So if you look at your idea of what it means to be a man, what percentage of that idea comes outside of you? And what percentage of that idea comes from within you?
About 90% comes from outside of me.
And that's why 90% of people, we're 90% fucked. Right? So, and if you look, and I'm sure you know this, and you've probably done this too, if you look at where is the goodness in your life, where does it come from, Stephen? It doesn't come from what other people have told you. They may have told you something, but then you looked within yourself and then you found that to be true.
Yeah.
The goodness in you, the motivation, the really good motivation in you, not chasing things, but the duty that you have, everything that you really strive for, all that good stuff comes from inside you. And the problem is that we live in a world that pulls our attention away from ourselves.
What do you think of Andrew Tateism then?
So as a general rule, I don't.
And so a pretty good point raised by Dr. Kanojia is the fact that when one becomes angry, it is as he said, it's more of a protective emotion. It's more of a protective tool. But the fact of the matter is, it's best to find a solution from within from without. So asking other, which is a switch from the red pill. The red pill is always, when you feel angry, to confide in men. But in this case, it's always best to go within. It's Dr. Kanojia's theory that you should go within and find out indeed if, what the answer should be. And then you should get a solution from there, which is counter to what most people say, and definitely what the red pill says on this subject. So it's another perspective, and it should be taken into account as well. But now we go on to the point of Miss Dr. Kanojia diagnosing the red pill. We're finally here, and let's hear what he has to say.
I don't comment on people that I don't speak to.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me the features of what you're talking about.
Okay, so the recent wave of internet masculine influencers who have like Bugattis and lots of women and sports cars, and there's many of them. And they seem to be resonant for some kind of reason. That are kind of saying that the way to be a man is to have loads of money, lots of women, these kind of cars, physical strength. And there's just this huge sort of generation of young, typically men, that are now disciples of that religion.
Yeah. So I think if...
Again, what this involves is, again, tenets of the red pill. There it is. He's just named them. Basically, more muscle, more money, learn game, hold frame. He basically described that point right there. So Dr. Kanojia is going to go on to describe his solution, his diagnosis and his feelings on the red pill.
If you dislike that toxic masculinity, what we need to understand is it's the people who hate that toxic masculinity that are driving these people towards it. So I know this is kind of crazy. So what's happened is this has grown, right? And as it's grown, what have we done? We've demonized these people. We've said these people are bad. And as we demonize them, what's happened? They've grown stronger. So this is something that's very important to understand. If you are a man and you say, I am suffering today, what is the response that you're going to get?
Shut up.
Absolutely.
Not in those exact words, but that's whatever the words are, that's what they mean.
Now, I want us to be very, very careful, right? So if you are listening to Stephen say people tell you to shut up, and your first thought as a listener is, no, that's not true, that's the problem. So if people agree with you, they understand what you're saying. But if they disagree with you, that's the problem. We literally have a man who is telling us right now that your experiences when I say I'm suffering, people tell you to shut up. And then people are going to be judging you for saying that. And they're going to be saying, no, that's not true.
They're going to be saying, shut up.
Absolutely. Right? So this is exactly the problem. So men are struggling right now, and the rest of the world says, no, you're not. You're privileged. You're a man. There's a patriarchy. And I'm not commenting on the sociology of it. There is a patriarchy, whatever. Men have many advantages in life. I've experienced many advantages of being a man. It's absolutely true. Let's not go there. I'm talking about the individual experience of men. So there is one group of people on the planet who says, yes, your life does suck. And that's these toxic masculine people. They're the only people that truly validate men's experiences. Because everyone else says, why are you complaining? And these guys say, yeah, you're a fucking loser. What are you going to do about it? They at least meet you where you're at. And they say, yes, your life is hard, and I will show you a way to make it better. Whereas the rest of the world says, no, your life isn't hard. What are you complaining about? And I've seen...
Great point raised by Dr. Kanojia in that, as has been described here, the red pill is one of the few solutions that are available to men for their issues. Because society is very dismissive of manhood and their problems and their trials. And it is totally, utterly, and completely something that, which society sees as very dismissive in and of itself. And we are indeed men are looking for solutions. The only solution one of the few solutions that are available, another solution will be produced here on Talk Live today, is one of the few solutions is red pill, which is making more money, having more muscle, learning game, holding frame. In other words, taking control of your life. Taking literal control of your life. And it's and until there's something that's better suited out there for it, I think it's seen as, I myself see it as a positive reaction to things. Now again, it can be seen as this it can be seen as toxically masculine, but again, those are two, polar opposite, very mutually exclusive points that don't make any sense, because how can you be toxic and be masculine at the same time? Again, we can go into that on a future time, and even Dr. Kanojia has discussed the subject as well. However, what Dr. Kanojia realizes is the fact that men see this as a solution. A real solution to things. And until something better comes along, or until ladies want to meet men where they are, as we've discussed here on Talk Live, until we meet men where they are, then what other alternatives do you have? What alternatives do women have? Because again, women are very selective as to what men they want to bond with or associate with. Period. And unless you are of confident, assertive, intelligent, witty, funny, high earning, very muscular, abiding by the rule of 6, They don't want to associate with you for any longer than what is needed. The red pill actually sees men for who they are and offers a solution to get out of this depressive / suicidal state. And it has been shown again and again on such podcasts as the Fresh and Fit podcast, as Kevin Samuels, as et al, as many others out there, and as they've already said, Andrew Tate, and legions of men find solace in this, and the more dismissive you are of the red pill, the more it grows. And until you find a solution that is comparable, if not better, than what the red pill provides, it's never gonna be out of here. So again, it's here to stay for the most part, and it is a viable solution to men to take control of their lives. And but again, Dr. Kanojia is offering another solution here, which I will mention it later on in the show. But let's continue.
I've seen this as a doctor. I've seen patients who are complaining about pain, women who are complaining about pain because they have an internal bleed within the wall of their uterus that cannot get detected. And they're saying, I'm hurting, and we ignore this person's pain. And that's when things go bad. So for years and years and years, we have ignored the struggles of men. And there's one group on the planet who accepts them with open arms. And the more that we demonize them, so when someone starts believing in this toxic masculinity, what is the response? Do people ever ask, like, help me understand what your life is like? Like, what do you like about this person? Because everyone's going to them for a reason, but we never bother to ask, why are you listening to this person? What does this mean to you? We see these posts all the time in our community. My boyfriend is getting into this stuff. My son is getting this stuff. How do I stop it? Hold on a second. Don't try to stop it. Understand it first. Because everyone's trying to stop it and no one is bothering to listen to what the experience of these men are. And that's why it's getting worse and worse and worse as we try to stop it.
So if I'm the...
Excellent point raised by Dr. Kanojia, even though it's put in a negative light and in a negative way, the fact of the matter is women, women for the most part, want to stop the red pill ideal. They want to stop the growth of the red pill. They want to stop, they want to stop men offering a solution to their suffering while not offering a solution themselves. I would say the most part of what women say in order to offer a solution for male loneliness and for suicidal rates is indeed being yourself. But if you are being dismissed at every beck and turn, you are not allowed to be a part of society. And this club, this group, this red pill group is giving you an opportunity to better your life. Guess what these men are taking? See, that's what that a lot of people don't understand about the red pill is that the red pill is offering solutions, even though it's deemed as toxic masculinity. But again, those are two, mutually exclusive points. But there you go. Because how can toxic be masculine? But there you go. But at the end of the day, there are no real alternatives for men these days. No one's offering alternatives. One is, as Dr. Kanojia was saying, is meeting men where they are. And if you meet men where they are and offer them solutions, guess what? The movement's only going to go stronger. And for the most part, red pill is basically a conservative viewpoint. It's a traditional, a trad-con viewpoint. There's not difference between a traditional conservative and a red pill man. No difference. No real difference. Maybe politically, yes, to a certain extent, but even then, more men as they grow older tend to be more conservative. And more men tend to adhere to the red pill philosophy. So, to be dismissive of the red pill is to be slightly ignorant to the perils of man and not offering solutions to their loneliness, to their suffering, and to better men and meeting them where they are. So, until society offers men an alternative for their loneliness, the red pill is here for you. Let's continue.
Mother of a son who is watching a lot of these sort of toxic male influences online, what would be a better approach versus just banning the computer and telling them that that's toxic and not to look at it?
Help me understand what you like about this. What is it like to be a man in today's day and age? How do you feel about yourself? How does it feel knowing that 70 to 80% of women want you to make more money than them, and yet 60% of people who graduate from college are women? So men are living in a world today where there are impossible expectations to meet.
Stop there! There are impossible expectations to meet. Men, here's the thing. This is the ironic thing. Women don't want men to be toxically masculine. But the fact of the matter is you have to be somewhat toxically masculine to succeed in life. To succeed in society, you need to be somewhat toxic and masculine. Listen. You gotta be a little nasty. You gotta do a little dirt, as they say in street vernacular, in order to succeed in society. And women love toxic men for some reason. Isn't that ironic? They don't want men to be toxically masculine, but yet they're drawn to toxic men. Think about that. Especially those of a younger nature, especially the 19 to 24-year-olds. They can't get enough of toxic men who are tall, who abide by the rule of 6, who are charming, who smell good, who look good, who are great in the bedroom. Good comment there by Chanel. I'm old school. I believe in teamwork. But at the end of the day, you want, as Dr. Kanojia was saying, you want a man who basically earns more than you. You want a man to take care of the bills. You want a man to be stronger than you. You want a man to, take control. You want all these things that are deemed to be toxically masculine at the end of the day. That's the one thing that we were mentioning here on Talk to Talk Live ad litem is the fact that a lot of these feministic women still long for conservative men. But they want their cake and eat it too. They want a guy who's emotional, who does this, all these things, but yet brings home the bacon, chops all the wood, is sexually virile, and abide by the rules of 6. 6 figures, 6-pack, 6 inches or more, and 6 feet tall. And that is indeed a humbler for a lot of men, as Dr. Kanojia was saying. These are lofty, if not unreachable expectations. But the fact of the matter is that they are expectations that women have for us. You've heard that most women want men who've earned over $100,000 a year. And that only pertains to 15% of the population. And if you don't measure up, well, you're part of the sexless generation now. 1 out of 3 men are virgins or haven't had sex in a year. You earn more men than... That's not me. I've earned more men than any man I've been with. Where are those men now? That's the question I would ask you, Chanel. Where are those men right now? Chances are they aren't here because they did not earn as much as you did. So, we've got to think of it that way. We've got to realize that women place these lofty expectations on it, but we can't be toxically masculine. Even though that offers a solution to the demands of women. Are you getting this now? But even though men aren't toxic or masculine, this is the way that they combat an issue that women have put in front of us, because especially in modern Western society. Can you be virile? Can you be strong? Can you be vulnerable? Can you be sweet? Can you be a provider? Well, most importantly, can you be a protector? Can you be funny? Can you smell good? Can you look good? Can you be witty? Can you have culture? Can you have the right haircut? Can you be the right size? You see all these different machinations that go on to being a man? And this is from outside of us. It's not from within us, as we have discussed on the show. This is what Instagram have told women that they want from men, and then men are falling on and say, you know what? I may not be good enough. You know what? I'll just take my life. I understand that you can do that, but the fact of the matter is, as you meant by your former comment there, Chanel, is that I earn more than any man I've been with. Where are those men now? That's the question I have for you. Where are those men who earn less than you are now? But anyways, let's continue with the conversation here.
So, like, what is it like to be someone who fundamentally has no chance at success? Right? These are the kinds of things that you need to say to these people. You need to give them an alternate place to go where they can be heard and helped, supported, and understood. See, anytime we make a judgment, our mind already has a conclusion. There's nothing left to learn anytime we're judgmental. So what do we do to all these people who are toxic men? We even create the word toxic. We literally label them as bad in some way. And I'm not saying that the behavior isn't toxic. But what I'm trying to point out is that even in our language, there is so much harsh judgment. So I once had a patient.
We both just did it, didn't we?
Yeah,
absolutely. So
that's the demonizing of men altogether with. Very good point offered there. They feel that any male movement that helps improve themselves is toxic, is negative. That's the thing about the red pill. They deem it as negative that men stand up for themselves. They deem it as negative that they call women out on their bullshit. They deem it as negative that men do what they must in order to make themselves better in society. And if that means being a bit cruel to be kind, that's deemed as toxic. But there are no greater alternatives out there, are there? So we call it toxic. Because women haven't thought of it themselves. Well, the female alternative is the blue pill, which is be sweet, be loving, be kind, pay my bills, do this and that, do whatever I say in order for me to live a better life. But a lot of men realize that the juice is not worth the squeeze. Because they realize once a man has been a romantic, good man, and totally obedient to his wife, she walks all over him. She leaves him at the end of the day because it's not that exciting anymore. She takes the kids. She takes the house. Because society has allowed for women to succeed when a breakup happens. And in a lot of those cases where a man has little to nothing of what he worked for all his life, what does he do? Suicide. He takes his own life. He offs himself. Ain't that great? But don't be toxically masculine, please. Please. Don't follow through with that. Chanel writes, I never ask a man to provide for my household, but the fact of the matter is, Chanel, you may not ask for your man to provide for your household, but the fact of the matter is you, like most women out there, want a man who can protect and provide. And protect and provide as much as you do. You may be different, but for most women, that is indeed the case. They want a man who earns more than them, that will pay the majority of the bills, that will look good among their friends, have a job that looks good among the friends so they can brag to them about it, that indeed can be a take charge guy while she's allowed to be a boss babe, and so on and so on and so on. But again, you're a partnership, so don't be you may be a take charge guy, but don't take charge in the relationship. As you were saying earlier, here, I remember that you wanted a man to be a part of your team. There you go. Protect, yes. Once we are married, he needs to provide. There it is. You've answered my question. You've literally answered my question. Once we are married, he needs to provide. And a lot of those men that you have dealt with before who didn't earn as much as you do, I guarantee you, when it came down to it, you did the cost-benefit analysis, you realized, you know what, if we get married, he wouldn't be able to provide. Not to the liking that I want. So what did he have to do? He had to go back to Jamaica and find someone a little less demanding on the Richter scale, on the provision ranking, and get on with life. And so he did. See, I'm trying to get at you now, and that's what I'm trying to get to the Talk Live audience about. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and thank you very much for joining me on this subject of male suffering and a clinician's look at the red pill. But again, it's that dichotomy that men have to wrestle with every single day, and to those who can't wrestle with it, they feel themselves as failures, and so they decide to off themselves. There it is. Let's continue.
A patient who is smearing feces all over the school. So adolescent kid, right? And when you have a kid who's literally taking a shit and wiping it on the walls and stuff, what happens? The kid gets punished. Kid gets punished again and again and again. The one really sad thing is no one ever asks, why are you doing this? What's going on inside you? Because healthy kids don't do this. It's only kids who've been traumatized in some way. And as I've worked with incels, as I've worked with people who are toxically masculine, it always starts with trauma. And when I say always, it is a clinical experience, but I'm talking about 100%. So 100% of people start on this path by getting hurt in some way, by getting taken advantage of in some way, by sacrificing something and not getting something in return. And they have their share of responsibility too. I'm not saying that they're hapless victims, but I think that people who are raised with love and compassion and do have connections don't go down this road.
You're so passionate about this, aren't you? Because I feel like your eyes have seen in your practice some pretty heartbreaking things.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, see, unless we are willing to be what these people need, they're going to continue going down the toxic masculinity route. Someone needs to start offering these people safe haven. No matter what they say, or not no matter, I think there should be consequences for actions. But so this is as someone who's worked in a jail, right? So this is what's kind of interesting if you really think about it. People will judge me for talking to or even trying to support people who are toxically masculine. And they're like, oh my God, you're such an asshole. You're giving these people a platform. How could you make the world a worse place? And then I tell them I worked in a jail for 3 months, and they're like, oh, look at you. You're so compassionate. You're working with these people who are like criminals. And like, oh my God. I don't think they realize that anyone you see on social media is 10 times better than the people that I worked with in jail. These are people who are actual pedophiles, actual rapists. Right? Not just talking about it. Maybe the people on social media are too. I don't know. And so it's really interesting the way that our mind automatically judges things. And so if we really want to fix this problem, and I think we need to fix this problem, it's just my take. I mean, I'm not I'm a big fan of like compassion and trying to support other human beings. I'm not saying that that's always the right answer. I think sometimes you may need things like war or violence or whatever. I mean, there may be causes for it. But generally speaking, I think that like demonizing these people isn't working.
Is there anything else that we haven't covered in the remedies to this sort of male crisis? We've talked about getting more in touch with yourselves. is there anything else? Do we need more positive role models, or is it really not about the external at all?
No, I mean, so I think all that stuff is true. So we know that, for example, like there's like a loneliness crisis and things like that. I think that it's not just role models, like we need individual responsibility. So like, for example, everyone will say, yeah, like I know it's a real tragedy that men don't have friends, but it's not my job to fix. I will hear this from both men and women, that like it's a real tragedy, but it's not my responsibility. It's sad that this thing happened, but it's not my and which makes sense, right? No.
Again, it's being empathetic, but not sympathetic. You can have empathy for someone. You can feel bad for them, but are you going to put yourself in their shoes? Are you going to understand where they're going to come from? Are you going to offer solutions to these gentlemen? And this is what you ask of women who deem men toxically masculine. What alternatives do you have to better a man's life? And usually it's nothing. But these men aren't trying to be toxically masculine. I go forward to say that these men are trying to offer these men solutions. They're trying to bring these men into a huge collective to better their own lives. And that's something that society isn't willing to do. Literally not willing to do. So why are you demonizing a group that are trying to make men better men? Trying to make them protectors. Trying to make them providers, which is what the Red Pill discusses all together with. And that's something that Dr. Kanojia, I very much doubt, understands. I very much doubt Diary of a CEO understands. They're trying to make men, better husbands, better fathers, better boyfriends, better all around. Because they're trying to rear the next generation of protectors and providers. However, because it didn't come from the gynocracy, quote unquote, it's demonized. Because it didn't have a female slant, it's demonized. So it goes to show that what's benefiting men right now, that's what's disallowing men to off themselves in greater numbers, is being vilified by a group that quite simply don't have anything better to say.
No human being is responsible for another human being. But then the question kind of becomes like, okay, let's play that tape through to the end. What happens to that person? Whose responsibility is it? So if you look at a lot of what's going on with men right now, it's loneliness, it's isolation, it's
just to go on to say that these men who are offing themselves, they need heroes. And if it comes in the form of Andrew Tate, if it comes in the form of Fresh and Fit, if it comes in the form of Kevin Samuels, so be it. Because these men now have heroes. They now have role models that they can follow to make themselves better men, better providers, better fathers, better brothers, better people all around. And disallowing them from quitting, from committing suicide. That's something that Andrew Tate has been preaching all along, even though they now want to silence him. He's trying to make men better men, but since it didn't come from the gynocracy, it's seen as toxic. His alternatives are seen as toxic. Now, you don't have to take Andrew's gospel to the letter. But you can take little things that can help improve your life. And that is all that is needed for you to become a better man. And for you to understand that you are worth the trouble. You are a better man because of you listening to these gentlemen, no matter how toxic they can be. But you don't have to take it to the nth degree. You don't. As long as it makes your life that much better, as long as you become a better human through their teachings, what's the problem? Are you hurting anybody by this logic? No. You may upset a few people, but at the end of the day, they have nothing in alternative to say. So, what can I say? Let's finish this up.
It's suicidality.
Sexlessness as well.
Sexlessness. And it's no individual person's responsibility, but the real problem with this is that these are not problems that men can solve on their own. This is exactly why this is the problem that men are experiencing. Because as men, we are taught to be independent. We are taught to be, you should fix everything on your own. And so men have fixed all of the things that we can fix on our own. The only thing that's left is the things that we must rely on other people for, right? So no one's complaining about, a lot of men are obese, but there's not like an obesity, there is a crisis, but that's not what's bothering people. That's not where we're losing the war. We're not losing the war on baldness, right? So there are lots of things as a man that you can fix in your own life. It's just the real challenge is that no one is willing to take responsibility for any level of connection with men. And so that's not something that is going to get fixed because you need another human being to hug you. Like you can't hug yourself. It just doesn't work. So my area of focus tends to be on introspection because I think that's like really, really powerful, but there's all kinds of other stuff that's important. Mentorship, role models, all that kind of stuff. But I think ultimately through introspection, you can attain complete peace, no matter who you are, what your path is, circumstances. I think it's kind of like the silver bullet, which is what the Buddha discovered.
So are you saying there that as a society, we should take on more of the responsibility for some of these big fundamental issues that men and people in crisis can't solve for themselves?
Subtly, no. Not a society. Because as a society, who's part? No. I mean you. I mean, your listeners as individuals need to take responsibility. And it's not that you have to take responsibility. It's not fair to you to be responsible for someone else. But unless everyone who's listening to this podcast goes out and literally hugs a man, no one else is going to do it. Because if you don't do it, who's going to do it? You can't rely on society. We've been relying on society to fix the problem. It's not working. Society can't do shit.
So you're saying me? Forget
yes.
Society. Don't wait for government to have some kind of intervention.
How's it working out?
Not great. I mean, the direction of travel as it relates to these sort of key issues like loneliness are only getting worse and worse. Suicidality seems to be getting worse and worse. Mm-hmm. Now you've got this young generation of...
So we're going to leave it there for now. Let me just get back here because I have a few people here at the house that I want to go see. But I'm just going to tie this up into one nice little bow. So let me get back there. Thank you very much to Diary CEO. An excellent conversation with Dr. Alok Kanojia. Please like and subscribe. Please go and see this conversation. Again, it is called Dr. K, There's a Crisis Going On with Men. We've produced millions of lonely, addicted males. This was produced about a year ago, I'd say. Actually, it just happened 8 days ago. So this is a very new podcast with Dr. Alok Kanojia. Please go and like and subscribe to Diary CEO, doing wonderful things in these YouTube streets. Wonderful, wonderful effort, and great discussion with Alok Kanojia. And his alternative, let me just go back to the main screen, which I would deem to be, a quite plausible alternative for men is to go and meditate and to internalize your frustrations and find and channel a focus so that you may indeed succeed at life. So through meditation, through chanting, through through prayer, through literal, excuse me, sorry about that. Through a literal channeling of one's thoughts into the subconscious, one can find an alternative to the red pill. Now, again, it depends on how you it depends on how you feel. I think the red pill is a harmless way for men to deal with their frustrations. However, another alternative is meditation. Another alternative is through religion. Another alternative is through simple internalizations of one's fears and frustrations so that they can indeed be better for it going forward. So I thank you very much, Dr. Alok Kanojia, for this discussion. But again, it is time that society, and quite simply, he offered the other alternative of men going out and seeking these men who may be on the fringes, who may look for belonging, and giving them a hug, checking in on them, understanding what their fears are, and offering some sort of solutions to their issues. A problem shared is a problem halved. And it's time that we help halving the issues of men. And I think a lot more men will survive because of it. Because again, with the higher demands of society, the higher demands of women, the fact of the matter is a lot of men are going to be left by the wayside. And it's up to us to look out for these gentlemen, rather near or far. But definitely, within arm's length. I think that's where is a great place to start. Thank you very much for joining me on Talk Live on this Friday night telecast. Thank you for the people in the chat, who, including Chanel, who's offered her views on the subject. And we'll be back next week. And I am going to go and discuss next week, just to give you an idea. We're going to be discussing Dr. Thomas Sowell. He is a conservative speaker, conservative viewpoint, and he's been in this, and he's 93 years old. He's been in and around the African American community for years, and he has been a critic of the left. And we're going to get into a little more deeper discussion about him next week on Talk Live, among other subjects. But I just wanted, I saw a podcast today that had a discussion of him discussing black society throughout the 1900s, and how it went from a certain peak to a great decline. And his solutions are quite revolutionary, quite incendiary, quite controversial. But again, I think these are solutions that we should have a look at these days in order for the betterment of black men. And we're going to discuss that next week on Talk Live. It's one of my dad's great. My father very much is an advocate and very much a devotee of Thomas Sowell. So I thought we'll dig into it next week, and we'll be discussing Mr. Sowell next week. He's an economist. I believe he's from the University of Chicago. We'll delve into that next week. But again, his viewpoint on the economy and the black experience is very eye-opening, and I hope we can get to chat about that on Talk Live. So thank you very much for joining me on Talk Live later on IG and YouTube, and look forward to seeing you then. Have a great weekend. I'm going to take a little time off and enjoy that, and I hope you do too. But thank you very much for joining me on Talk Live on IG and YouTube. Sponsored by Duntalk, DUNTLK.com. Like, subscribe, comment. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. And Spring Summer Line will be out very, very soon. Coming soon. Look forward to that. And again, thank you very much. And we will speak to you soon. And good night from Toronto. And good night, YouTube. And thank you very much for joining me on Talk Live. And we'll be back in the new week with more discussion of such topical issues and definitely Dr. Thomas Sowell. So again, we'll discuss that next week on Talk Live. And he may not be a doctor. He's an economist, but not a doctor. Not a doctor. Yes, indeed. But